We are thrilled to be back, and it's another wonderful Wednesday. We've got
Yeah.
intuitive eating principle number 8
Yeah.
that we are diving into today.
I am going to risk to say that this is my absolute favorite principle. Yeah,
Wow.
I
Okay.
absolutely love this. I think that this is going to be really emotionally charged. I
Mm.
think that Evelyn and Elise did a really
Yep.
good job on this
Completely agree.
principle, and I think we're going to take it to the deeper level.
That's what we're known for.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
really good. So we would like to dive in. This principle is called
yeah.
respect your
Your
body.
body. Yeah.
So I'm curious, just even as we're saying those words, what you're noticing coming up inside for you. There might be thoughts, or there might be feelings, or even just body sensations as you hear those words, respect your body.
Yeah, there might be resistance, there
Mm,
might be anger, there might be fear.
mhm,
So many times when we start talking about respecting your body, I think that it's really easy for clients and
mhm,
individuals to jump to. If I respect my body, does that mean that I have to step into a place of, living in this emotional or physical space for the rest of my life, which
mhm,
most of the time people start out their process feeling like there's no way,
mhm,
I cannot live in this body self
mhm,
in the current state that it's in. It's
mhm.
kind of like a no deal for people.
Right, right.
So when we talk about respect, which we're going to spend a lot of time talking about today, it gets really mixed in
Mhm,
with, am I going to be trapped? Am I going to
mhm,
continue to be miserable? Does that mean that I have to give up on the
mhm,
hope and possibility for change?
mhm,
And the answer to all of that is absolutely not.
mhm.
But the most important thing is really the approach that you take
Right.
to yourself, including your body self.
Yeah. One of the things that I hear a lot is respect, really kind of getting commingled with love. And,
Mm,
as you're saying, we talk about respecting your body, and people, a lot of times pretty quickly go to that place of there is no way I can love my body. And I'll kind of slow it down and say, we're not necessarily talking about loving your body
mhm,
yet.
mhm.
We're talking about respecting your body. And so I
Yeah,
think it's important for us to take a few minutes and really kind of flesh out the differences between respect and love, because they really are different. And it's so important in this conversation of crafting a relationship with your body that is kind.
yeah,
It's so important to understand, the difference between respect and love in this experience with your body self. Would you agree with that?
yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. We are in an area that we are going to be stepping into really an emotional hornet's nest.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think both within yourself, because there's been so much trauma around the concept of body size,
Yeah.
okay, and body weight.
Mm-hmm.
I think trauma within the self, trauma within your history, and certainly, unfortunately, trauma within our culture. So I just want to qualify
Mm-hmm.
first and foremost that we're going to be using words that are for us
Yeah.
very intentional
Mm-hmm.
towards the space
Mm-hmm.
of completely neutral
Mm-hmm.
experience of body based on size or weight.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, in everything that we're talking about, we're really going to be talking about it regardless of actual body size or
Mm-hmm.
weight.
Yeah.
Okay. Because loving, respecting, honoring your body self has nothing to do with size. It has to
Mm-hmm.
do with approach to, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and embracing yourself in that space of unconditionality, really.
Absolutely. And it's certainly not contingent on body size or shape. But
Yeah,
unfortunately, the reality is we live in a culture that says all the time
yeah,
that body respect and body love is
yeah,
contingent
yeah.
upon it.
So I just wanted to preface that, and I'm sorry if I kind of interrupted your
No,
flow a
no.
little bit, but this is such a hornet's nest. And so we will say over and over again, and whether people hear that or don't hear that, not just in our community, I'm talking about just even in our profession and in our
Mm-hmm.
world. but we really come from a place of complete lack of judgment regarding body size or weight. That
Mhm.
is not for us to judge. You know, we
Mhm.
definitely within ourselves have our own value system
Mhm.
that is really lovingly unconditional towards acceptance of all people,
Mhm.
you know, for many many things, including
Mhm.
their weight and their size. And so
Mhm.
we will always be coming from that place.
Mhm.
We guarantee it. We promise that. Mostly we just promise that within ourselves, but we would like
Mhm.
everybody to know that fully.
Yeah, I'm glad that you said that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're
Yeah, because
welcome.
it is. It's hard to talk about body stuff. You
Yeah,
know, there's been so many messages. There's been so many challenging
yeah,
experiences, and probably experiences and beliefs that you've really internalized within your sense of self and body self.
yeah,
So it is a hornet's nest to
yeah.
talk about this, and
And
we
we're
have to.
and we're going to, right?
That's right.
Because it would be a gross disservice not to. So we never
Yeah.
sidestep the difficult issues. This is a necessary conversation to have, and so
Mhm.
we're going to risk to do that,
Yep.
and we're going to do it in a healthy way, like we always do,
Yep.
and that's our motivation and our intent. So,
Yeah, and I really appreciate a comment that came in
uh,
when I asked, what's coming up, and one of our members said fear and anger. And I think that that
ah,
is a really authentic
yeah,
truth about
right,
what comes up for a lot of people
right,
when we talk about body, and it does naturally then kind of go into weight for a
yes,
lot of people.
yeah,
There is a fear around that because our body holds so much that we're going to talk
yeah,
about, and an anger, right?
yeah,
And that could be some anger directed towards your body. It could be anger directed towards the culture,
yeah.
towards having this as a thing to even work through. So I really appreciate the authenticity of those emotions and you sharing
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
That's very real.
There is so much emotional trauma, okay? Real emotional trauma that has happened around the body self,
Mhm.
okay? Especially as it relates to size and weight. And so, as that is in everybody's history, right? It is going to impact how you experience these conversations,
Mhm.
right? So, absolutely, it's going to bring up a myriad of different emotions and feelings. And it's going to be
Mhm.
important to really understand that and to know that sometimes that can really magnify certain things that we're saying. It can sometimes distort things that we're saying.
Mhm.
Everyone has their own process and experience with it. And it
Mhm.
really is like a hornet's nest.
Mhm. Yeah.
So it's going to be important to be aware and be intentional and kind of process through the things that are coming up as we're having this conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's start with differentiating respect from love,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Because it is so important. And I would say that, respect is really about treating yourself and your body self with dignity.
Mhm.
You don't have to love everything about your body. In fact,
Mhm.
I think that's really normal.
Mhm.
You and I are both very
Mhm.
body positive and
Mhm.
accepting and loving. And
Mhm.
there are things sometimes about my body
Mhm.
that I don't love,
Mhm.
and that's
Mhm.
totally okay.
Yep.
But never, ever, ever do
Yeah.
I waver in my respect for my body. I
Yeah.
will always treat my body with integrity and dignity and make sure that its needs are met to the
Mhm.
best of my abilities.
Mhm.
And that even though I don't love everything about it, I certainly treat it
Mhm.
as well as I possibly can.
Yeah. Yeah. So you gave some great examples of kind of behaviorally how you treat your body in a
Mhm.
way that has dignity and respect.
Mhm.
And I'll step in and I'll talk about emotionally,
Mhm.
right? And again, it is really normal to experience parts of your body, right, that you might not love per
Mhm.
se, but that you can still respond to with respect. And a
Mhm.
lot of that comes back to what are the things that you say actually to your body
Mhm.
self, right? So as you're looking in the mirror, as you get out of the shower, as you're moving your body, right? As you're experiencing your body, how are you emotionally responding to it?
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay. If you see things that you would like to change, if you see flaws, are you neutral about it?
Mhm.
Are you kind of compassionate about it? Or are you really harsh and critical or self judging about it?
Mhm.
Okay. So it's really, really important. There's a big differentiation. You can say, oh my goodness, like, where did that come from? Or, kind of what's
Mhm.
going on here? And you can, laugh about it. You can just kind of make note of it, or you can say something that is very unkind and
Mhm.
judgmental,
Yeah.
kind of beating yourself down and beating your body down, which goes into that space of, lack of respect, actually
Absolutely.
abusing
Mhm.
yourself vis-a-vis your body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, you can't love something that you don't first respect.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
if respect is missing, you can't get to body love. So it
Mhm.
has to start with respect. And think about, maybe some external relationships in your life, a relationship with a friend or a family member, a pet, a child.
Mhm.
I'm sure there are times where they do things or say things that you don't really care for. And you still hold yourself accountable to be respectful towards them. And you can set a limit, right? You can say, please don't talk to me that way, or that didn't feel really good. So it's not that you loved that interaction, but you were still respectful of them even through that interaction. And that's really, kind of an external example of what we're talking about relative to this internal relationship with your body, that it's okay
Mhm.
to acknowledge what you don't like and what you don't
Mhm.
love, but it's not okay to go into that
Mhm.
disparaging, berating,
Mhm.
abusive.
Shaming, bullying,
Yes,
okay,
yes,
self-rejecting, kind of contingent, like you
cruel.
are only acceptable if, okay?
Yeah.
I can't stand you, right?
Mhm.
I'm not going to support you. I'm not going to put a bathing suit on and
Mhm.
enjoy the
Mhm.
beach, until you behave like
Mhm.
this,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So those kinds of things.
Yeah. And in the intuitive eating book, I liked how they talked about this like body vigilance, that you have
Mhm.
this vigilance around how your body should be and
Mhm.
could be and needs to be, and
Right.
it needs to behave,
Yeah.
right? And then
Yeah.
that creates worry, which then really pulls you away from that organic connection to your body and a grateful appreciation for your body and all that it does and offers you. And then, of course, that sets into motion all the disordered, relationship with food and your body. So we
Yeah.
want to get away from that vigilance and that cruelty and abusiveness, and at best, or I guess at minimum,
Mhm.
be neutral.
Yeah.
At best be very respectful, because that is then going to be the foundation on which liking and then loving your body can occur.
Yeah. If you think to back to just some of those examples that we were just giving when we were talking kind of emotionally
Mm,
about, you can't be okay unless you do this, or this is not okay, unless you're like this way. It's so much easier to get this concept if you think about doing that to either yourself or maybe even to somebody external that you care about, or even a child, beating that
mhm,
person down. I'm not going to love you unless you get these grades. I'm not going to
mhm,
love you unless, your skin is cleared up.
mhm,
I'm not going to take you to this party on Saturday night, unless you get your teeth whitened.
mhm,
So those kinds of things, looking at how cruel that
mhm,
is,
mhm,
and then recognizing that there's the potential to do that to your body self, right?
mhm,
Too many times you're doing that, it just as kind of a course of action. You're so used to doing that to yourself. And it really is so very harsh, so very conditional, not loving whatsoever, and really emotionally abusive.
mhm,
Okay. Really emotionally abusive. Nobody's body is perfect.
mhm.
Okay.
Right.
Nobody's body is perfect. And if you're looking at somebody else and thinking their body is perfect, guess what?
Mhm,
Nobody's body is perfect, and nobody's experience of their body
mhm.
self is perfect.
Right.
Can it be respectful? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Regardless of its size, shape, functioning, abilities,
Yeah.
age, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's always worthy of respect. So
Yeah.
it's really important that we start there,
Yep. Yep.
and that you make a fierce commitment to practicing respect for your body self. It will go a very long way.
Yeah.
And again, you have permission to not like or love everything
Mhm.
about your body, but please start working really hard at expressing respect for it. And we can do that in a lot of different
Yes.
ways, right? I mean, like you were saying, that self talk, I do a lot of trying to express gratitude
Mhm.
to my body. Thank you for, whoops, we just lost our video or our screen. We'll keep
Hmm.
going.
Okay.
Um, I think somebody might be screen sharing. So if you're screen
Okay.
sharing, if you wouldn't mind turning that off, thank you.
Okay, great.
Um, what was I saying? Oh,
So
expressing gratitude,
yep, yep.
right? So just having that self dialogue of thank you so much,
Mhm.
body, for, taking me on that walk or letting me sleep through the night without aches and
Mhm.
pains, right?
Mhm.
Another way that we can show respect for our body is tending to its basic needs. So something as simple as when I need to go to the bathroom, I will get up and I will take myself to
Mhm.
the bathroom. Or if I need some fresh air, as soon as I'm able, I'll get outside and get some fresh air.
Yeah.
So responding to just some of those basic needs that your body asks for.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say maybe a step before kind of treating your body with respect in this way would be listen to how you are treating your body
Mhm,
first. Okay.
mhm,
So take some time to increase your awareness of that internal self talk,
mhm,
right? Be mindful as you go through your day, experiencing your body and or looking in the mirror, putting on clothes.
mhm.
Okay. So increase your awareness of the current state of things. All right.
Yeah.
Work on maybe neutralizing that. And then ultimately
Mhm.
going into this beautiful place of gratitude, acknowledging things in a positive way, the way that Dr. Ashley is talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
It's actually a very simple thing you can do for yourself, that can go a long way.
right, right, right.
So it's a wonderful way to start practicing some of that respect for your body self.
Yeah. So one of the things that I um, oftentimes will encourage my clients to think about, because it's a lot of times people know that they're supposed to do what we just talked about,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And even breaking it down into stages,
Hmm.
there still is this struggle, this resistance,
Hmm.
right, to embracing your body self in this more self-respecting way.
Hmm.
And when that happens, what I like to do is to really kind of open up this awareness that just like your emotional self kind of has a backstory as we're starting to do the deeper work and we're starting to understand what yourself has experienced through your life's path and journey.
Hmm.
Everybody has a story. Okay, so similar to your emotional self, your body self has also had a story. Okay,
Yeah.
and I think that the more we can then start really opening up and increasing our awareness to what has my body self lived through,
Hmm.
that then has resulted in its current state.
Hmm.
Okay. And I say that with no judgment.
Hmm.
We really then can start getting a greater sense of compassion and empathy and ultimately respect
Hmm.
for that body
Hmm.
as opposed to this judgment, okay, based on just the current state or the status.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It just went through my mind. Of course, I love metaphors and analogies. Is, people who maybe are rude or disrespectful or don't follow the law, make really bad
Mhm.
choices. And it's so easy to just kind of size them up right away and say, oh, they must dot, 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 and
Mm.
not really have compassion or empathy for them.
Mhm.
But then you take the time to get to know them,
Yeah.
right? And you hear their story.
Yeah.
Um, and you start to make sense out of why they're at this place in life, why they struggle so much with this, or why they're, showing up this way. And it makes sense. And you
Right.
naturally start to feel this
Right.
empathy and this compassion, like, oh,
Yeah.
I get it. And wow, like I
Mm.
don't want to judge in
Yeah.
this critical way.
Yeah.
You know, it just makes so much sense. So
Yeah.
it kind of came into my mind as you were talking about that with the body. It's
Yeah.
like the more we can bring curiosity and
Yeah.
compassion, how many times do we say
Yeah.
that, to the table and
Mhm.
really be open to the
Right.
story of our body, we can't
Yeah.
help but feel respect and then love
Right.
for our
Right.
body,
Right.
right?
Absolutely.
It's really touching.
And compassion. So, I think about stories in chapters, right?
Mm,
And I feel like the story of your body has really three primary chapters, and that is the emotional chapter,
mhm,
okay, the behavioral chapter that is oftentimes a result of the emotional
mhm.
chapter, and then the physical, okay?
Yeah.
So, and the physical of like past and kind of, innate, but then also,
Mhm,
kind of the things that have happened to it,
mhm,
current things like medical issues and
mhm,
disorders,
mhm.
in the current state.
Right, right.
So let's talk a little bit about
Yeah.
those three chapters.
Yeah. So
Okay.
starting with the emotional chapter
Yeah.
of your body has a story, right?
Yeah.
There are so many emotions
Yeah. Yeah.
that come up around our body cells. I
Right.
mean, like what our member was saying with fear and anger,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We have all kinds of
Yeah.
experiences, and I just invite each of you to kind of, go into your
Mhm.
own story and notice what are the emotions
Yeah.
that are there for you today, but
Mhm.
even going back in time,
Yeah.
to important moments and chapters in your life
Yeah.
where there was a lot of
Yeah.
emotion around your body.
Yeah. Let's say you were born into a family, and a family where your body was open to comment,
Mhm.
okay, by people that, whether they thought that they were doing right by you or not. If you were a 5-year-old and you were a little bit overweight, was there a comment about your body? Was there a comment about should you be eating those cookies or should you not be eating those cookies?
Mhm.
Was there a comparison between
Mhm.
yourself and a sibling?
Mhm.
Maybe an older sister or a younger sister,
Mhm.
right? And your body was somehow thought to be okay to make comments and comparisons, all
Right,
right, which becomes part of your body's emotional story.
right.
It no longer is this neutral kind of entity that just houses your soul.
Mm,
It becomes something that you have to be aware of
mhm.
in this way, where then there's a judgment
Right.
that gets, imprinted on your body's physical mass.
Well, I think their shame and their judgment and
Yeah.
their criticism and their messaging of somehow your body is not good enough according to their ridiculous standards,
Yeah.
then unfortunately becomes the emotional story of
Right.
your body. My body is shameful.
Yeah.
My body is judged, negatively.
Yeah.
My body is not good enough,
That's
right?
right. That's
And
right.
then it holds all of those emotions, and there is a mind body connection.
Mhm.
When those emotions are being held in your body, they will manifest
Right.
in lots of different ways
Yeah.
over the course of your lifetime, whether it's disorder or disease or low self-esteem or depression. There's so many ways in
Yeah.
which our body holds those feelings and then has to kind of deal with them,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
You got it. Another emotional component that many, many bodies experience is having been violated
Mhm,
sexually.
mhm,
Okay. And whether this is, God forbid, in childhood or in adolescence or even in adulthood.
mhm.
Okay. This is an emotional experience that gets connected to your body self that
Mhm,
absolutely is going to affect your body's state
mhm,
currently.
mhm,
Okay. And how can you not have compassion, okay, and empathy
mhm.
and hopefully respect for a body that has experienced that kind of emotional process, all right, which is going to be an inherent interwoven part of that body's eventual physical state.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a
Okay.
profound piece of the story.
Yeah.
Again, that brings up tremendous emotion. I mean, you and
Okay.
I are trauma
Yeah.
therapists. This
Yeah.
is, unfortunately, that this is the work we do all day.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we have the privilege of getting to walk alongside people as they heal
Yeah.
from this. So I
Thank
always want
goodness.
to add that piece because
Thank
that's what
goodness.
makes this work possible.
Right. Right.
Um, but the tremendous amount of emotions
Yeah.
that come along with any type of abuse
Yeah.
or neglect, but especially sexual abuse.
Yeah.
It's I think the grossest violation, gross in the
Yeah.
emotional gravity of
Yeah.
it, that a human body could ever have to endure. And we
Yeah.
have to just be incredibly
Yeah.
respectful of that emotional process.
You
It
got it.
deserves the most
Yeah.
respect and love.
Yeah. And I'm glad you used the word that I was going to come back to, and that is violate. Okay. And that is a darn hard word, but it's an accurate word. Okay. Violate.
Mhm,
Because that is what happens in abuse and trauma.
mhm,
Your body self is emotionally and physically and sexually violated,
mhm.
but it is emotionally violated.
Right.
And therefore, that body self is going to have consequences that is based on that emotional experience.
Right.
Okay. And darn it, we have to understand that.
Mhm,
Okay. As we start looking at the body self,
mhm.
right?
Absolutely. If you
Yeah.
don't, you will be stuck in your own process.
Yeah.
I mean, you just will. If those emotions don't get metabolized and processed through,
Yeah.
they will hold you back
You
for
bet.
sure.
Okay. So we're going to take a deep breath here because we are talking about really poignant processes as we're talking about this concept of please respecting your body self and understanding that every body has a story.
Mhm,
We are risking to say these really hard
mhm,
truths. And we're doing it out of respect for the body self. Because I happen to have a lot of compassion for people's bodies because I know all too well what the body goes through as a
mhm.
trauma therapist. Okay.
Yeah.
And when you really understand that, how can there be any judgment?
Right.
Okay. Not that there was prior, but I can't hold any judgment for whatever state that body is in. Okay. When
Mhm.
you know that there are direct consequences to what that body has been through. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the
Okay.
next chapter,
Okay.
yeah, I'm catching my breath.
Yeah, I
This
know.
is
I
this
know.
is
It's tough
tough work.
stuff. It's tough stuff. So the
Yeah.
next chapter is behavioral. Okay.
Mm,
And so as we're all feeling this emotionality in response to this really deep and honest conversation, guess what? If you're not comfortable with emotions, if you're not comfortable with this depth of authenticity, which most people who haven't had healthy emotional role modeling and healthy emotional family of origin systems to deal with this depth,
mhm,
right,
mhm,
of emotional material, guess what? You are behaviorally going to find something to
mhm,
deal with this emotion
mhm.
that your psyche and your body and yourself are experiencing from some of this story,
Right.
okay, in your history. And a lot of times that is going to be through the use of food.
Mhm.
Okay. So, this level of emotion that you might be feeling right now as an adult, think about what you felt when you were
As a
younger.
kiddo, right.
Okay. What the heck do you do with this? This is big stuff. I need to be comforted. I need to be calmed down. I need
Mhm,
something right now to
mhm.
distract me because holy cow, that was just intense. I'm going to reach for food.
Right, and I need this emotion to go away.
Yep. Yep.
I am too young. My brain is not developed enough.
Yep.
I don't have anybody here to help me. I'm sitting alone in all of this tremendously overwhelming
Yep.
emotion. And, just a quick side note, there are a lot of experiences we go through in childhood
Yep.
that have the potential to create this type of distress.
Yep.
So
Yep.
certainly abuse and neglect
Yep.
are high on the
Yep.
list, but
My dog just died.
Oh,
right?
sure. I
You
mean, there
know,
are just countless
the
things.
teacher unexpectedly left, and it was my favorite second grade
That's
teacher.
right. That's
Okay.
right.
A friend just was a mean girl to me.
Right.
Okay.
There are so
Yep.
many places where, we feel very, very intensely. And a
Yep.
lot of this does go back to childhood because we experienced those feelings at a time in our own development where
Yep.
we couldn't handle them.
Right.
Okay. Like your
Right.
brain isn't even physically fully developed until age
Yep.
25. Can you believe
Crazy.
that?
Crazy.
25.
Yep.
So you're going through these big experiences. I know we both
Mhm.
have kids. We watch our kids
Mhm.
go through really big
Right.
experiences. They're not necessarily, I mean, they're certainly not abusive or neglectful, but
Mhm.
they're traumatic for our children
Mhm.
because they are very emotionally intense and
Yeah.
distressing, and then they need the scaffolding and the support of
Mhm.
parents and teachers and grandparents and loved ones to help them through. Their brains aren't capable of computing and processing all that's going on inside of their little brains and bodies.
Yeah.
So there are so many experiences that you can have as a younger person and also into adulthood. It's not like at 25 suddenly things don't cause that kind of emotional
Mhm.
distress, but you need different things to help you regulate the incredible emotional intensity that your body is holding.
Right.
And we've said this so
Mhm.
many times, food is an age
Yeah.
appropriate drug of choice.
Mhm.
All right.
That becomes wired,
Yes.
okay, and gets carried forward. So
Mhm.
even though you have developmentally or chronologically advanced, this early wiring that was super effective,
Yes, it
okay,
was.
emotionally, biochemically,
Mhm.
okay, um, gets just really solidified in
Mhm.
your emotional coping foundation.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And that is why it's so easy to boom, go
Mhm.
right to that.
Right, right.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's other behavioral things that will be part of your body story too. So there will be the use of food, and then maybe that also gets coupled with, sitting on the couch and watching TV when you're 12 years old, right? And then you find yourself doing that as an adult. It could be that you just kind of become very reclusive, on the weekends when you don't have to interact with people and you just kind of pull away and escape into your little corner. So there's lots of behaviors that are a part of your body story
Yeah.
in response to these incredibly intense emotional experiences that at the time you didn't have the coping skills and the relational resources to help you through them. And that's what becomes the trauma.
Right. In response to behaviors, in response to, and to me, that deserves respect.
Mhm. There's a
Okay.
reason, right?
There's not only a reason, but your psyche has unconsciously found a way
Mhm.
to make you psychologically survive when there's no other coping mechanism. Okay. That is where that compulsive use of food comes in. It starts in the earlier parts of your life most of the time, and then it does continue in adulthood. And even though you might be a very capable individual, right? Great job, maybe you have a
Mhm.
PhD, maybe you're a lawyer, right? Have 5 kids that you are managing at home,
Mhm.
okay? Very capable adult, but guess what? Your psyche at that time of early overwhelm and no other internal resources developed this compensatory way to help you survive,
Right.
okay? Helped you to survive. You have to respect that,
Mhm.
okay? And now your psyche is still doing it because it doesn't know that there's all of these other resources
It
now,
hasn't gotten
okay?
a system update.
It hasn't gotten the system update, right? So, so to understand that backstory, right?
Mhm.
To understand the behaviors and how they came about and to respect it. That doesn't mean we might not want to change it,
Right.
okay? But to hate yourself or to hate your body because of doing those behaviors that ultimately helped you to emotionally survive
Mhm.
doesn't make sense.
Or to hate the behaviors, right? That
Yeah,
you know you shouldn't do, or
right.
that you've learned how to do something different. You've learned all the distraction skills. So, what's wrong with you that you're not using them?
Yeah,
We have to respect those behaviors and
yeah,
why they're here and the emotions that prompted them
yeah,
and the absolute incredible nature of the human psyche to find some way, somehow, with the limited resources you had at that
yeah,
time to find a way to keep you going.
yeah, yeah,
It's remarkable,
yeah, absolutely. Okay.
right?
Yeah,
So then
yeah.
that folds into
Well, that folds into the physical,
mhm,
right? And
yeah.
so when we talk about the physical story that your body has, number one, I mean, I think that in response to what we're talking about,
Mhm,
there's a physical consequence, right?
mhm,
And I say it like that because I say it without judgment. But your body is going to be a result, right, of the emotional processes that you've lived through, the behavioral compensation that has
mhm.
stepped in to try to help you to survive. And then, of course, there's going to be a body physical kind of um, repercussion or just even
Just outcome or
response.
yeah.
A
Mhm,
plus B is going to equal C. And I,
mhm.
again, don't mean that in any negative way,
Right.
right? It just is what it is. It's your body self then becomes a byproduct of those two things. So we
Mhm,
have to understand that, okay,
mhm.
without judgment,
That's right.
okay,
Right.
without judgment.
And rejection and ridicule and criticism.
That's right. Okay. There
Mhm.
has to be understanding, has to be understanding.
And I think when you, or I'll say when I work with clients and we really start to go through this work of peeling back the layers of the body and the story, there's tremendous grief that bubbles up.
Mhm.
And, there is a lot of sadness about what has been lost to the behaviors, what has been lost to the emotions that then drove the behaviors and what was lost in the experiences that led to the emotions that led to the behavior that led to the
Mhm.
body. And we want to be so respectful of grief and really hold a space for yourself to feel anger, to
Mhm.
feel sadness and all of the loss, because it's in the feeling of those emotions that then you kind of clear things out inside of you that then make it possible for you to step into this place of respect and say, okay, that's my story from back then. And
Mhm.
now, with love and respect and gratitude, I'm going to make some different choices here and kind of steer myself and my body self in a bit of a different direction. But I'm not
Mhm.
going to do that with judgment. I'm not going to crack the whip and berate myself. I'm going to be so kind and compassionate about my story and how I got here so that I can then
Mhm.
start to move through that grief and then create a different, kind
Yeah.
of next chapter
Yeah.
of the body story.
Really, really important.
It is.
Really, really
And I
important.
think too often, sometimes grief can get, if it's not honored as grief, and just allowing yourself to feel
Mhm.
kind of the pain of what has been lost because
Right.
maybe you didn't know all this stuff back then. I mean,
Mhm.
how many times do we hear, gosh, if only I had known this
Right.
20 years ago or learned this 30 years ago, I could have saved myself all of this struggle.
Right.
And yeah, that's real grief. And
Yeah.
we've got to have a space for that. And if we don't, sometimes that grief can even get stuck,
Mhm.
right? And I can kind of sit in this place of like self loathing and rejection.
Yeah.
So I just want to normalize if you find yourself feeling that, that's totally okay.
Mhm.
Like hold a space and let yourself cry and, feel all the feelings that come with this new awareness
Yeah.
of compassion for your body story. It's in the processing of that grief that you actually will expand open a space for yourself to be able to then move into
I love,
making loving, healthy change.
yeah, a space where then you embrace yourself with loving self respect, okay, and loving body respect, which is really the starting point of healthy change.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it has to come from that place. We always say that change is best when it comes from a place of self-love. Okay. I am wanting to support myself in whatever way is your desire or need, coming from a place of self love, okay,
Mhm.
not self criticism, not self rejection, but as a way of like self care or self love. And again, I'm going to emphasize what we said at the beginning of this video. We're not advocating that there has to be change, but
Right.
so many times people do come to us. I mean, that's probably why you're watching this video. That's why you're in
Right.
this community, because you are seeking out some change. And change is not bad. Change does not mean that you are necessarily rejecting yourself. Change means that you are actually embracing and loving yourself in a way that you say, there's some things in my life that I want to
Mhm.
work on changing so that I treat myself in a way that feels better for me. All right. And we want that to come from that place of
Mhm.
self love. And we believe that that is best done when you come from a foundation of understanding your body story, your self story, and you give yourself the love and the compassion and the support that your heart would very likely give to others.
Mm. May I propose maybe it's not change, maybe it's growth.
Oh, I
Doesn't
like
that feel
that.
nice?
I like
I was
that.
just thinking, I mean,
Yeah,
I
I
am like
really
such
like that.
a lifelong learner. I've always got
Yeah,
a book in my hands
yeah.
about the next thing that I'm interested in. And I always want to be growing, and
Hmm.
that does, it creates
Right,
change.
right.
But I don't know,
Yeah,
growth to me has like this positive, loving, that's just what we do as
right,
humans. We don't have it all figured out. We never will. I hope I never have it figured out because
right.
that would be so boring.
Yeah,
So let's make a commitment to all of us in the community that we keep growing,
yeah.
and we do it from a place of respect, not
Hmm.
only for ourselves today, but for
Hmm.
ourselves from yesterday and
Yeah,
all that that self and that body has gone through. And I encourage each of you in your own ways to really kind of think about your story.
yeah.
And some of you may want to write it. I know we've got some writers in the group. Some of you may want
Mm,
to paint it out, walk it out.
yeah.
There's lots of ways to connect with our story.
Mhm.
And I invite you to just really hold a space in your heart this week
Yeah,
to um, just hear
yeah.
more parts of your story, right?
Yep, yep, yep. You got it. You got it.
Okay. How did we do with this
Mhm.
conversation today? As you mentioned
Yeah,
at the beginning, we're
yeah,
very intentional with our words,
yeah.
and this is a very charged and can
Mhm,
be a very challenging conversation.
mhm.
So, hopefully, you are taking bits and pieces that are helpful for you. I see
Yeah,
in the comments here somebody wrote "The Body Keeps the Score," so
yeah,
we're reminding you, I think, of
yeah,
that book by Bessel
yeah.
van der Kolk. It's a wonderful book for
It's
any of you
fantastic.
who do have body trauma,
Yeah.
or somatics of any kind today that
Mhm,
bother you. It
mhm.
is a dynamite read for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
What else?
Another member says, "Thank you. I took a lot in."
Good,
And
fantastic.
another member says, "In the first two-thirds of my life, so many people disrespected my body and boundaries.
Mm,
If I tried to respect myself, I was bullied for it."
wow.
So there's real fearfulness and trauma in being assertive for my body now. I know logically I'm safe, but deep, I'm stuck as constantly afraid what will happen if I set those limits now. And
Okay.
now I hear Dr. Julie saying, feel the fear and
Mhm.
do it anyway.
Oh, I love that. It's the insight is always the first step. And then stepping into that place of saying, okay, like I don't want to repeat the same thing within myself, right? Like I want to be able to say, I'm going to hear myself that this is my experience, that I was bullied or I was ridiculed, and now I'm going to listen to that within myself. I'm going to validate my story, my history. I'm going to allow myself to go through the natural feelings and I'm going to hear that, right,
Yeah,
within
yeah.
myself so that I can heal it and then move forward. So I love your comment because I feel hopeful for you.
Mhm.
Um, and I also hear you taking our words in, which is
Mhm.
wonderful. This is why we share and having that kind of starting to be woven into your own internal dialogue in a way that maybe you can embrace that and start using that, maybe as a model. Dr. Ashley and I were talking just before the video cast about models that we look at,
Mhm.
wonderful role models. To have a role model is a beautiful thing. I'm always looking at people that, I might admire or that I think have things to teach me, or,
Mhm. Or that
just,
show you what's possible,
yeah, that show me
right?
what's possible, and really kind of experience how they approach life. And I love then taking the pieces that fit for me as I evolve. I really like that word, evolve,
That's a good one.
uh, so anyways, thank you so much. It
Yeah.
just, Dr. Ashley and I, this is such a love project for us.
It
And
is.
and it still always like touches my heart when I hear people reflect back the words that we say, and
Mm.
and starting to integrate that into your life in whatever way that fits for you. Like, that is why we do this work. So thank you so much for sharing that. It's just really beautiful.
It's absolutely
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All
All
right.
right.
We're so glad that you joined us today. We hope that this was a really helpful
Yeah.
and inspiring conversation in whatever ways you're needing right now.
Yeah.
Of course, you can always share your questions and comments and
Yeah.
thoughts. And next week we will be doing our Q&A. We've already got two questions in the queue
Yep.
because they're the ones from last week
Mhm.
that we simply ran out of time. So they will be our priorities next
Yep.
week. And then any other questions that you are finding yourself wondering about as you're going through your personal deeper work,
Yep.
please feel free to just drop them in the feed and or send us a message and we'll make sure to add them in. And then we really look forward to answering them. I love
Yeah.
those
I do too.
conversations.
I totally do. It feels like you guys are right in the room with us,
Yeah,
and it helps us to really be able to know that we're meeting your needs. So
very good.
good. Okay. All
Okay.
right. Take care, everybody. Have a wonderful Wednesday. Keep working hard. Believe in yourself and embrace all aspect of yourself, including your body self,
Mhm.
with love and respect.
Lots of respect.
Okay.
All right. Bye.